Main Street used to smell like bread in the mornings. At 6 a.m., when the sun crawled up from behind the river and the shopkeepers lifted their metal shutters with tired groans, the scent drifted out of Havorson's bakery and wrapped itself around the block. It mixed with fresh coffee from Benny's diner and the faint oil and dust smell of the old road. It was the kind of street where people nodded to each other even if they didn't know names, where nothing truly bad was supposed to happen. That illusion died on a Tuesday. Detective Elias Crow stood at the edge of the crime scene and stared at the blood. It pooled dark and thick on the cracked asphalt of Main Street, seeping into the old white lane markings like ink into paper. The body lay face down near the bus stop bench, one arm twisted unnaturally beneath the torso, the other reaching forward as if the man had tried, too late, to crawl away. Crow didn't need to flip the body to know who it was. Thomas Hale, Officer Ramirez said quietly beside him, 42, owns the pawnshop on the corner, shot twice, chest and neck. Crow closed his eyes for half a second. Hale had been loud, annoying, and slippery, but he wasn't supposed to die in the middle of Main Street before breakfast. Witnesses? Crow asked. Ramirez shook his head. A couple shop owners heard the shots. Nobody saw the shooter. Cameras are old. Half of them don't work. We're checking what we can. Crow looked up and down the street. Yellow tape fluttered in the breeze, cutting Main Street into pieces. People stood behind it in small knots, whispering, staring, holding phones. Fear moved faster than truth in a town like this. Get me moving, Crow said. And I want every camera feed pulled, working or not. Ramirez nodded and walked off. Crow crouched near the body, careful not to step in the blood. 2 shell casings glinted near the curb. Clean shots. Close range, execution. Crow had seen executions before, in cities where violence came with sirens and neon lights. But Main Street felt different. This street remembered you. It held your footsteps, and now it held blood. By noon, the story had spread faster than any official statement. Some said Hale had been mixed up with gangs from the South Side. Others whispered about debts, stolen jewelry, and blackmail. A few claimed it was a robbery gone wrong, though Crow knew better. Nothing had been taken. Hale's wallet, it still sat heavy in his back pocket. Crow sat in his office at the precinct, staring at the corkboard already filling with photos, names, and arrows. Hale's face stared back at him, thin smile, eyes sharp and calculating. Hale had been a pawnshop owner in name only. Everyone knew he dealt in more than watches and guitars. If you wanted something quiet moved, something not entirely legal, Hale knew a guy. Trouble is, Crow muttered, so did half the town. A knock came at the door. Come in. Detective Mara Lynn stepped inside, carrying a folder thick with papers. She was younger than Crow by at least 10 years, sharp, pied, and relentless, with a reputation for not letting things go. You're not going to like this, she said. Crow raised an eyebrow. That makes it interesting. What have you got? She dropped the folder onto his desk. Hale had a meeting scheduled last night, 8 p.m., back room of his shop, no cameras inside. With who? That's the thing. She opened the folder. 3 different names show up connected to that time. One of them is Judge Raymond Kessler. Crow froze. Kessler. He repeated. The same Kessler who's been on the bench for 20 years. The very same. Crow leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. That's not a name you throw around lightly, Mara. I know, she said, but phone records don't lie. Hale called him twice yesterday, and Kessler's car was seen parked near the pawnshop around 8:15. Crow stared at the ceiling. Main Street just got bloodier. Judge Raymond Kessler lived in a brick house 3 blocks from the courthouse, with a manicured lawn and a white porch swing that never seemed to move. He answered the door himself when Crow and Lynn arrived, dressed casually, his silver hair perfectly combed. Detective Crow, Kessler said warmly, I was wondering when you'd come by. Judge, Crow replied, may we come in? Kessler stepped aside. The house smelled of lemon polish and old books. Everything was in its place. Too much in its place. We're investigating the murder of Thomas Hale, Lynn said, watching Kessler closely. I heard. Kessler replied, his voice calm. Terrible business. We understand you knew him, Crow said. Kessler smiled thinly. In this town, detective, everyone knows everyone. Did you meet with him last night? The smile faded just a fraction. I did. Lynn leaned forward. Care to tell us why? Kessler sighed and gestured for them to sit. Blackmail, he said simply. Hale claimed to have documents, old documents, that could damage my reputation. Crow's jaw tightened. And did he? No, Kessler said quickly. At least, nothing legitimate. He was fishing. I went to tell him to stop. And what happened? Lynn asked. He demanded money. I refused. Words were exchanged. I left. At what time? Just before 9. Crow studied him. No shaking hands. No sweat. If Kessler was lying, he'd had years of practice. And after that? Crow asked. I went home, Kessler said. My wife can confirm. Crow nodded slowly. We may need a formal statement. Of course, Kessler said. I have nothing to hide. As they stepped outside, Lynn muttered, he's hiding something. Crow didn't disagree. The pawnshop sat dark and silent, its windows barred, its sign flickering weakly in the afternoon light. Inside, dust motes floated through the air like ghosts. Crow and Lynn moved through the back room carefully. A small table sat against the wall, 2 chairs facing each other. On the floor near the table, a faint scuff mark. A struggle, Lynn asked, or someone standing up fast. Crow replied. He crouched and examined the floor. No blood. If Hale was killed on Main Street, it happened after he left here. Lynn frowned. Why meet him, then walk out onto the street alone? Crow straightened slowly. Unless he wasn't alone. They found the first real break at Benny's diner. The waitress, Clara Finch, was pouring coffee when Crow asked her about the night before. She hesitated, then leaned in. I didn't think it mattered, she said, but I saw Hale around 9:30. He was arguing with a woman outside. A woman? Lynn asked. Clara nodded. Tall, dark coat. Couldn't see her face clearly, but she was angry, real angry. Crow's mind raced. Did you hear anything? Just shouting. Then a car door slammed. They drove off. What kind of car? Black sedan, newer model. Lynn scribbled notes. License plate. Clara shook her head. Sorry. Crow thanked her and stepped outside. A woman, Lynn said. That's new. Crow stared down Main Street, imagining it as it had been the night before. Quiet. Dim streetlights. An argument spilling out into the dark. Run every black sedan registered in the county. Crow said. And check Hale's recent contacts again. There's someone we're missing. They were. The name surfaced late that night. Detective, Ramirez said, poking his head into Crow's office. You need to see this. He handed Crow a file. Lena Mercer. Crow read aloud. 38. Former journalist. Fired 2 years ago. Fired for digging too deep, Ramirez added. She wrote an expose on corruption in the courthouse. Named names. Crow flipped through the pages, including Judge Kessler. Lynn, standing behind him, went still. Where is she now? Lives above an old bookstore on Main, Ramirez said. Crow looked up sharply. Main Street again. Lena Mercer's apartment was cluttered with papers, books, and half-empty coffee cups. She stood by the window when Crow and Lynn arrived, arms crossed, eyes defiant. I was wondering when you'd come, she said. You knew Thomas Hale. Crow said. I did. Lena replied. Unfortunately. Did you argue with him last night? Lynn asked. Lena laughed bitterly. Argue, that's one word for it. Crow watched her closely. What was it about? He had proof, Lena said. Real proof this time, not rumors. Documents tying Kessler to bribes, case, fixing all of it. And you wanted them, Lynn said. Yes, Lena replied, I wanted the truth. Did he give them to you? Crow asked. No, he wanted money, protection. He was playing both sides. Did you kill him? Lynn asked bluntly. Lena's eyes flashed. No. Where were you at 9:45? Crow asked, driving. She said, trying to calm down, I dropped him off near the bus stop. Crow felt a chill. That's where he was killed. Lena swallowed hard. I didn't know that. Crow believed her, mostly. Did he mention anyone else? Crow asked. Lena hesitated. He said if anything happened to him, the documents would surface. Where? Lynn asked. Lena shook her head. He wouldn't say. Crow stood. You're not leaving town. I wouldn't dream of it. Lena said quietly. The killer made a mistake. It was small, but it mattered. Forensics found a partial print on one of the shell casings. It was smudged, incomplete, but enough. It matched Judge Raymond Kessler. Crow stared at the report, heart heavy. They brought Kessler in the next morning. He sat in the interrogation room, hands folded, posture perfect. This is a misunderstanding, Kessler said calmly. Crow slid the photo of the shell casing across the table. Your print, Judge. For the first time, Kessler's composure cracked. He was going to ruin everything. Kessler whispered. I built my life on that bench. He had no right. So you followed him. Lynn said. You waited. Kessler closed his eyes. I only meant to scare him. But you didn't. Crow said. You executed him on Main Street. Silence filled the room. Finally, Kessler nodded. Yes. The arrest shook the town. People gathered on Main Street again, not to whisper, but to stare as Kessler was led away in cuffs. Some cried. Some cheered. Most just looked lost. Lena Mercer published the documents a week later. The courthouse changed. The town changed. But Main Street never quite forgot. Crow stood by the bus stop one evening, watching the sun set. The blood was long gone, scrubbed away, but he could still see it in his mind. Main Street still smelled like bread in the mornings, but now, beneath it, there was something else. The memory of blood.